So I'm continuing on with this report, whatever you want to call it. Beginning, and I said it's only been a month. Technically it's almost 2 months. So May 15th. This comes from this. So they voiced their concerns. There's a group called the Woodland Hills Warner Center Neighborhood Council and Canoga Park Council. One of the things that they don't, do they mention it here? One of the things that they don't mention in here or provide a link to in today's modern age is a letter, a formal, well, I guess you could call it an open letter, a PDF form online that this group sent to NASA, to the primary go-to guy who's in charge of overseeing what they're expressing concern about and what their primary thing is. Again, I read this each time. More than 2.2 million cubic yards of soil will be remediated by NASA and the Department of Energy, the DOE, from the Santa Susana Field Laboratory. They're going to use an estimated 150,000 trucks. It's going to take about 10 years. The trucks are going to be operating Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 at night. I've made a lot of critiques about this. I've sent emails to Atwater, the city of Atwater. I've sent emails to the Catholic Church, Lady of the Valley. I sent emails to the Universalist, Emersonian, Universal Christian, or whatever the hell kind of church it is, including directly to their former pastorette or female pastor. I sent emails to the Los Angeles River Conservation Group, and I don't know who else. I might have sent some more emails out to some other people. In the emails, I gave my own little script, but I connected the PDF. I attached the PDF of the open letter from this group to the guy NASA. Their primary concerns were the potential health effects of the dirt, being that it's coming from the Santa Susana Field Laboratory. So that was May 15th, and then we come over to July 10th, about 2 months later, and we have this article here. Study finds no adverse health effects. And then another poignant emphasis in the era of headlines and the fact that 80 million Americans, 40 million Americans are illiterate, and another 40 million can barely read at a junior high level. That's about 6th or 7th grade now. So you're looking at 80 million Americans have, we're talking primarily adults, have a below remedial level ability to read, and that implies comprehension above all. Just not just reciting the words, but it's actually comprehension as the primary function of reading. So, and Woodland Hills probably has a very high rate of literacy. Comprehension doesn't necessarily mean that they anything. Plus, it's a little thing. So anyway, so the headline, along with this little tidbit clip that says, contrary to popular held beliefs, none of the studies confirm connections between operations and off-site worker health effects. It cites that there are 11 cancer registry. Okay, here we go. The 28-page document entitled Review of Studies of Health Effects Possibly Related to the Operation of the Santa Susana Field Laboratory contains a summary and conclusion from 11 cancer registry epidemiological and 2 pathway studies. Contrary to popular held beliefs, none of the studies confirm connections between Santa Susana Field Laboratory operations and off-site or worker health effects. So the goal in this, and continue to purport that this is a nuclear terrorist attack that's being perpetrated against individuals that are using the guise of government positions to pose as this is some kind of public, what it's some bullshit public shit. It's just about private people making money. They're sick, sociopathic, fascist, Nazi-like figures that are willing to turn the area that they're going to transport this material through into a pseudo type of concentration camp. Now, what I've been trying to do is use that language in order to get my point across. But the reason I can't do that is because the people I'm talking to are exactly the same frickin' thing. So while I'm portraying this evil, diabolical, Nazi, fascist, racist, bigot, religious, sick, sociopathic character, it's much like the truth. I have to use my family as an example. In my family, there was a child molester. He was my uncle. His name was Rudy. He was my grandfather's best friend since growing up. But what was going on behind Rudy was that he was a sexual child molester, a child raping, scum sucking piece of shit that operated within the ranks of my family for at least 60 years and 4 generations, 4 known generations, including my mom, who was a victim of his first victim that we know of, at least in the family, while my grandfather was fighting in World War II. Something that in all probability my grandmother became aware of. And whatever brought a halt to, well, my grandfather coming back probably brought a halt to that. He came back in 1945. So, no, how did that work? I forgot. Anyways, but found out his second victim was his own daughter. Well, the second known victim was his own daughter, who told her mother, and her mother denounced her daughter as trying to destroy her relationship and exiled the daughter. And my grandmother and my side of the family, her mother is my grandfather's sister, or was something like that. Exiled her. So then Rudy, the next victim that he picked, was one of his granddaughters, who he raped. And again, this is not touchy-feely. This is put a male penis. And he was the biggest member of the family too, as far as height goes. He's Mexican, but he was like 6'2". Me growing up, I always looked at him as like, my favorite comic book character was Colossus, so I associated him with Colossus, the X-Men, and I was like, oh wow, he's big and strong. I want to be like Uncle Rudy, because I was raised behind the veil of reality. So my point being, he went on to do this at least to 2 of his granddaughters, his own daughter, and my mom. And each, except for my mom, who never openly came forward to any of the family members, being a victim of a shame, but at the same time being held back by people like her sister, my Aunt Zina Balaj, who lives in Oregon, who played a very active role in preventing my mom from coming forward by using the guise of Christianity. And, well, if you want God to help you get through this, you have to let God help. You have to let God heal you. And if you believe that God healed you, then you should never talk about it again. So that psychology is also at play in this. So when I didn't come aware of this until like I was 34 years old, to the full dynamics of this element of my family. But when I did, I immediately was trying to confront it. And the blowback that I got to draw from the CIA was very vicious and sadistic. And since all communication with my family has been cut, and I have no regrets about it. It got to the point where even my sister, I made the false assumption that my sister's character was uh, separate or withdrawn from my family, not understanding at that time the only identity that she could have is the one that she established through the relationship of being a child in that system. So while the confrontation was escalating, and I thought that instinctively went to rely on her, she was always helped me out in other situations, and I was assuming that that was going to be it. To have her regurgitate the mantra, "It's in the past, mind your own business," was a eye-awakening experience, to say the least. And so, and I was very blunt with her that I had seen the direction it was going anyways, because I wouldn't shut up for them anymore. I wouldn't be another Rudy advocate. He's dead now, but that's what they. Even when he's dead, they won't even face it. So and she wouldn't. The other thing too is that she became just like my aunt Xenia in becoming a unit of repression that was operating to prevent my mom from coming. And maybe it was like a revenge thing because my mom was a bitch to her, raised her as a bitch. So maybe it was a revenge thing in uh, subconsciously or consciously. But I told her very clearly, I was like, if you say the same thing that Xenia says and operate in the same way, you're a disgusting, pathetic, horrible person, no different than Rudy. It was funny because their retaliation was the simple fact that I wanted to bring it up and make it public in the family. They came to say that must, they equated me to a child predator who was suffering from urges and guilt complex, which blew my mind at first until I devised the question, what does it matter though? Because for 60 years it didn't matter to you about a known child raper. You all chose instead each successive victim that came forward to exile the victim, to denigrate them as a bad person. I was raised by my mother, a good Christian woman, who taught me that my aunt, his daughter, who was the first victim to come forward, was a bad person. She was crazy. She was a liar. My entire life I was taught that. Never listened to her. And I didn't find out that she was his first victim until I'm 36 now, until I was 35 or 34. And that was after the death of her son who died from stomach cancer. And that was a very eye-opening experience. Not, it didn't reveal anything about me, but it revealed a lot about the character about my family, my aunt, my mom, my grandma, with these words. So, what I'm saying here is the goal towards the confrontation is never pretty, and the bystanders are more vicious than the actual perpetrators. Because though no one ever confronted Rudy. He ended up going to jail twice that I know of. And when he got out, the family, every barbecue that we had, he was there. My mom brought me to every barbecue that he was at. And she knew the backstory between all of this. She brought my sister for our entire lives. He was there. Meanwhile, we didn't know who the victims were successfully excommunicated. But with pride, she taught me to honor him. A very powerful thing. But the confrontation. So the confrontation is never easy going. Because of the subject matter is the people have to face themselves. And psychology, the base psychology tells you, like when they were saying, oh, you this, the typical defense mechanism is called projecting. It's projecting your own shadow, essentially, or your own reflection onto the the threat, or whatever it is. So as to say, oh, what you recognize that you can't deal with, that's operating within you, you ascribe or prescribe to the other person, which is a coherent recognition of the ill in the first place. But it, stuff like uh, ego, and ego, this is why Buddhism and Eastern religion are specifically designed to address ego. Ego is not a constructive force that adds insight and gives you individuality. Does not make you a stronger. It's divide and conquer. It's separate to kill. So the more individualistic you are, the more prone to be not only a prey but a predator. So this this story here, because of the benefit of the experience with my family, this story here, which goes on to cite that at least 4 of the 10 nuclear reactors suffered accidents. They had nuclear reactors there, including it was the largest hot lab of its time, which processed fuel. They had an open burn pit where they burned um, sodium coated objects. Another important thing, this is in a canyon area, and in the San Fernando Valley, which is a completely suburban area. All houses for the most part. I would say 85 to 90% housing of community, from apartments to just houses and trailer parks as well. This location here is in between the San Fernando Valley and the Pacific Ocean, the West Coast. And we get these winds called the Santa Anas that we're kind of famous for. When we have big fires, the Santa Anas blow them. Well, what that means, without them saying it, getting too detailed, is that sodium, every single bit of sodium smoke debris that they burned was carried from here, because it's a wind corridor, directly into the San Fernando Valley, which is a basin. You don't need very much scientific know-how to understand the effects at that point, because I doubt that sodium's like helium and it's going to rise. It's got to settle. So that's one factor. The other thing is, it's obvious that they're clarifying that there's no big problem whatsoever. It's continued on page 13 here. It says the studies were conducted. It tells you who the studies were conducted by to give validity to them. And so despite consistent conclusions of epidemiological studies of off-site effects, some community members continue to assert contrary conclusions and voice beliefs which contrast with the study's findings. Similarly, they cite conclusions from a study that they debunk. Okay, the pattern is continued with regard to pathway studies. So, and they're saying basically, what are you guys crying about? So we want to move some dirt, and therein lies what, in one sense, in legal terms, they say he who, something along the lines of, he who reacts to an accusation spreads it. So they're like, don't react. Well, they reacted, and if you see past their protecting the child molester type language, the gist of it is, simplify it. If the dirt is so clean, and if 11 studies prove that there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, there's no negative health effects whatsoever to be had by anybody ever. Not to mention that Rocketdyne lost what's considered to be, that dwarfs the Aaron Brockovich settlement, and is estimated to be anywhere from 4 to 6 times as large, including, I would like to note that my father, my aunt, his twin sister, and my uncle that lived in this area all died from numerous forms of cancer within 10 years of living here. and they all died before they hit 60. And I equate them, Rocketdyne killed them. I say Rocketdyne and the Pentagon murdered them. So I have no allegiance. Whoever, if they represent America, I don't owe no allegiance to them. It's my duty to get vengeance. Fuck your Christianity. Vengeance is mine. I'm the son. So, but one of the points that is easy to miss in this is, if they have to go through all of this trouble, 11 studies, and get NASA involved, who had nothing to do with it in the first place, but just in my opinion is a cover, just like this news article is a cover to pacify the community, bringing NASA in is another effect of pacifying the community. Oh, it's NASA. Who would NASA hurt? And I suspect the next step are going to be Christian organizations that are affiliated with the what I call the nuclear priesthood, that are basically employees that work for the companies involved: Boeing, Rocketdyne, NASA, the Pentagon, military contractors, Lockheed Martin, and all that, in order to say, hey, look, we're good Christians just like you. We're not tripping. Why should you trip? But the gist of all of this is, if the dirt is so irrelevant and the health concerns are so non-existent, why are they moving the dirt? Then the question then becomes, so you're going to take 10 years and charge a couple $1 billion to California taxpayers, presumably, no, not from the federal, to move dirt that is completely safe and has no negative adverse effects and has no effects whatsoever on any of the surrounding community, even outside the vicinity or directly in the vicinity. But you're going to take 10 years putting it in trucks with all the diesel fumes, if anything, driving up and down a small suburban area that houses about 500 to 750,000 American citizens, including a large populations of children. Why are you going to do that if it's just dirt? If it's just dirt and you have 11 studies to prove that there's no health effects, why do you even move it? Why do you got to get it out of there? What's the big deal? Why are you calling it a cleanup? Santa Susana Field Laboratory cleanup. So, it's like the question, it's in the past. Let it go. But all these studies too, interesting thing is, anybody that was involved in the class action suit against Rocketdyne, which was won and settled, and again is estimated to be 4 to 6 times more because it was undisclosed, tagged with gag orders on the people that won the money as if they won something, because without that gag order, those people would be able to actually participate in the public dialogue. But luckily this is not the Soviet Union or North Korea or Iran. This is a good Christian capitalist society. And these people, they got their share. So they just need to shut up and mind their own business and continue dying or continue mourning the loss of their loved one that allowed them the access into the... I refuse from participating. My sister refused from participating. My brother refused from participating. And I don't expect them to have the gumption to participate in this either. Would they want to participate in our own family? Why would they participate for any strangers, if for anybody's concern? But this is it's in the past. Let it go. And either way, if it was a mistake, it was an accident. They didn't mean to do it. This is it. But we do need to clean it up. And how do we clean it up? How do we clean it up? It's a nuclear terrorist attack. It's perpetrating murder, mayhem, assault and battery, the miscarriages that are going to be associated with this, the children that go to the schools there. When this thing starts, then they start kindergarten. By the time they get into high school, it's still going to be happening, and they're going to have it for their entire life. And you're going to see girls having blobs of shit come out of them for babies. And everybody's going to... What happened? It's not the dirt, because the dirt is so clean, there's no point in moving it. But if the dirt's so clean, I propose that that means Rocketdyne should get their money back for the lawsuit, because the people that claim to suffer injury as an effect of the contaminated dirt, because it happened in 1959. The people suffered the damage. My family only lived there. My dad and aunt and uncle only lived there from 1982 to about 1986 at the longest. I think they even left in 84. So their death and the other people that died at that time had to have died of their own degenerative lifestyles and being, and it was God's will. It's God's will, and it's going to be God's will. All the little girls that have miscarriages moving forward, and that's the way Jesus works, and that's the way pledge allegiance, baby, is the truth. If it ain't a big deal, why the fuck you moving the dirt? You fascist Nazi pigs. State of California, Los Angeles City Council, Mayor, California Governor, California Department of Justice, the Pentagon, Rocketdyne, Boeing, NASA, which we all know was founded by a freaking Nazi. And what is it? Be careful what you hate, because then you become it.